Welcome back. I know it's been a while. I've been pretty busy doing firefighter stuff. So, I'm going to make a long one today. What it's going to be about is I want to talk about decks I made in chronological order and really kind of examine how I went about it and, look at some refinements that I made really. Because I was thinking about this earlier and, you know, you go through different phases of deck building, I feel like. Everybody does something different. And for me, uh, some of these I feel are bloated. You get to the point to where you refine, and then maybe you just wind up focusing too much on one thing. Maybe you don't have a good all rounder, or maybe you lost a little bit of what made something casual, or maybe it's just to where it's I don't know, it seems like it's outdated compared to things that you built in recent times. So really, let me show you what we got here. First off, how about that? So we've got all the way from here, from one of the first decks that I've had, right? That I made some modifications to. All the way down the line to the last one that I built. And it's pretty funny. You'll see some commonalities. I'm also going to take note. I'll get some pen and paper here in a second. I want to take note about what my most common colors are. And I will tell you what, right now, I believe the least common color for me is blue. Maybe for some of my more interesting things, but I'm making an estimate that least common color is blue. I think I only have 3 blue decks, and they're just okay. The most common color, is probably green, now that I think about it. And the second most common will be black. Now, as far as power level goes, I had to do a dip there. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll do a run of a count while I'm doing this, so we can track it. And we'll see what this says about what I lean towards when I deck build. I feel like I lean towards black, and maybe I lean towards, I don't know. It'll be interesting, and I'll do a count of color combos too. I just think that'll be something interesting to do. So let's pause it here. All right, so we're back. I got a marker and a piece of paper here. I'll be writing on well, it's not really a piece of paper. Anyway, so let's start off. And so, like I said, it's gonna be a long video, but we'll be pulling the decks. I'll talk about them, and I'll show what's in them and how I've been playing them and when I started it. So we'll go all the way down here. We'll pull this one first. So this is going to be Anya, I believe. Yeah, it surely is. Good old Anya Falconwrath. So interestingly enough, this was, I would say, the first commander deck that I started to modify. Not the first one I built. The first one I built was Jund. It was Windgrace. And you'll actually see that influences a lot of what I built. It was probably, Windgrace was my favorite, but this was the first one I actually modified. And this kicked off a lot. So we have red and black. And so this one's really simple. You tap her to discard a card and draw a card. And if it has madness, then you untap her, right? And so that's really all she is. So now we can start looking at what we have in this deck. And let's see here. Aside from all the lands. So I went with the Hellkite Tyrant. Oh, and also these aren't the original sleeves. They look like it. Actually, they may be. I've updated these sleeves, but I ran these colored sleeves and these sleeves for a while. So Hellkite Tyrant, it's pretty much just stealing artifacts, right? So some of this stuff is going to be simple. A lot of these Madness cards I never use. What you do with this deck is you cycle through this deck to get to your infinite mana combo. You pull these Madness cards back. Of course, there's some things that new cards I like to add to it. But for now, right, we're just going to go with what I've done with it. So a lot of this is pretty much the same deck originally. Most of the same stuff in the pre-con. I didn't really go with the theme. I just went for combo. So some of this stuff is new. Thaumatic Compass, I'm a big fan of this. You might see this again in a couple decks. You use this so you can go get lands. It's a great way to search for anything that doesn't normally ramp. But all these Madness cards, I use them to discard. I might play them if I can get them back in my hand for half mana. But, you know, some of these things, and like this Haunted Ridge, I've added to it. But I'll just zip pie the Madness stuff. Gilded Lotus, that's how you know it's really old. This was really good for a while. It does allow artifacts. I always like the Tectonic Reformation. I feel like this would be really good in a Jund, so you can do discard stuff. But I haven't really cared to work around it. Tortured Existence, discard, getting rid of creature cards. And there are some new Madness stuff, like this one right here is really good. Rakdos. Why wouldn't you use this guy? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to do Animate Dead and World Gorger Dragon to make infinite mana. Most of you know what this is and how this combo works. So I'm not going to go too crazy into it. I guess all these Madness, like this guy, you can use him. You know, playing that Madness is a good removal. But most of these Madness, you know, you don't. I don't even know what half of them say, honestly. There's some things like Spontaneous Combustion. You can sack up, you know, a couple creatures to do 3 damage to each creature. Pretty cool. Good old Diabolic Intent. To me, it's a slow tutor. It's a high cost tutor because you're sacking a creature, but I think it's worth it. Jessica's Will. That's obviously a great card. Commander Sphere. And Death Pit's a Rat. When any creature is dealt damage, destroy that creature cannot be regenerated this turn. So with this one, I went heavy into the just damage across the board. And you'll see that. Grim Discovery, one of my favorite black cards. That's a common. You can do one or both. You can get a creature or a land card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can get both if you wanted to. That's for Rakdos, really. The Lord of Riots. I'll zip through some of these. Yes, the Underworld Breach. This will pop up in another deck. It'll pop into the CEDH deck. But for this one, because you're discarding so many things, it works out very good. Oh, yeah, Reaping the Grave. Same thing with that Storm. Oh, I did add this in. So the Containment Construct, a lot of people are doing this with CADH combos. It's really good with this deck because you're discarding. Oh, yes. Hour Devastation. I just like that card personally. Another good Madness. A good budget way to draw cards. More Madness. Yes, Diabolica, so a slower tutor. Again, I wouldn't consider this a high-powered deck. Maybe it's a 5. I just think it's fun because I like to draw cards, you know, and I like to do different things. And, you know, the more I played it, the more I realized my decks like to draw cards, I like to do funky stuff, I like to have options. Of course, you have to when you're playing just a 2-color, you know, and you're not really going into the blue. Now this guy is just fun to do. It's another reason you just want to get that direct damage in. Flying Haster. Why not? I really like the Conspiracy Theorist from Strixhaven. You may play one, discard a card if you do draw a card. When you discard one more non-land card, you may exile one from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. This one in the containment, I've really thought about putting it in my latest deck that I built, but we'll get back to that. Of course, the Talismans, that Treasonous Ogre to pay through life and add red. Pretty neat stuff. So Archfiend Ifnir is a great card for this too. When you cycle, discard another card, put a -1 counter on each creature your opponents control. This is one of the very first upgrades that I put in this deck. And this deck, I got it back in 2020. It is a 2019 deck, pre-con. 20 is really whenever I got into Commander on deployment. So shout out to LeBron for that. And pretty much everybody that watches this channel knows about this. Galvanic Relay. I absolutely adore Galvanic Relay. This deck, it just gives you options. So some of these you'll see repeated in my most current deck. We'll get to at the end. Dry Spell, doing that 1 damage to each creature and player, because you can give Death Touch. We'll see that in a minute. This one is actually really good for doing the madness. You can return instant sorceries. It's a good madness cost. I think that's pretty neat. You could really get pretty crazy with the discards if you can get that artifact out. Nabob. But really, oh yeah, that's the damage. We got Unearth, another madness. Azura Oddsmaker, I think is a cool. Junior combat, you may discard a card if you do. Choose a creature. When that creature does combat damage to the player's turn, you may draw 2 cards. So I believe that you could probably turn this into CEDH with that containment. You might want to switch out Anya for Prosper. which is funny. I think the very first deck that I really tinkered with, Shadow of the Graves, that's how you get all those things that you cycle or discard back in your hand. Ah yes, the Petulant Spirit, another way to give your spells Death Touch. So instant sorcery spells, you control have Death Touch. So that's why you'll see these instant sorceries in here that do damage, just so you can get Death Touch. Just a massive, nasty board wipe. Most of the time you can, you're drawing so many cards and playing so many lands, you can get this off if you need it. For this, because you're cycling so many things into the graveyard, it's excellent. And then Greed. So that is the Anya deck that I started in 2020. And it's pretty much the same with the exception of some new stuff that I've added to it. And I really enjoy this deck. Alright, next up, we're going to go for a while it was my flagship deck. Since then, not so much. So this is going to be Kyrix, Son of Yawgmoth. Talking about the themes and how decks cook stuff off, the Anya one, that's why I credit that with the first one I tinkered with, because that's where this guy comes from, right? And to me, he's one of the best engines in the game, and I ran him in 20, and the first iterations of this, and I wish I had one of the very first ones I built. The very first one I built by myself, I can't remember her name. She's like Menace Girl or something like that. I don't know. She's a mono black commander, and when she enters, she gives everybody -1 counters or something. I can't remember. Anyway, so this one, it's pretty much mono black spell slinging, right? And the changes I made, I powered it down quite a bit, honestly, because you get tired of playing the same thing and you want to try different stuff. So one of the best cards in here that's underrated is Ashes to Ashes. So 2 black, 1 colorless. It removes 2 target non-artifact creatures from the game, and you only take 5 damage. So for this one, this is an excellent removal spell. Of course, the Jet Medallion. So I cycle so many spells and stop my graveyard with all these spells that I sling. That Feldon's Cane is a great way to get all that stuff back into your library. It's also protection against mill, which can really hurt this deck. Right? Reliquary Tower, Sign of Blood, one of the best draw card spells in the game. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. Why not? So Manifold Key has so many different applications for me. You can untap another artifact, so that gives your fast rocks more flexibility. Plus, target creature can't be blocked this turn, which is usually you're pushing Crick through to get that life gain. Fatal Push, just cheap removal. Let's see here. Gatekeeper Malakir. I love this card because you're kicking it and a player sacrifices a creature when he enters. The Arena. I've been messing with this one just because, you can tap them and do all this damage and everything. It's pretty cool. Anyway, Hatred. Pay X life, get a creature at +X/+0. It's for a finishing move. Reckoner's Bargain, a newer one that I've been testing out. I really like this. You sacrifice an artifact or creature. Gain life, you go to sacrifice permanents, mana value. Draw 2 cards. Man, for that, you gain a little bit of life, but you're drawing 2 cards on 2, so why not? I already looked at this, pay a life, draw a card. Stinging Study, another card that a new one that I absolutely love. X, where X is the mana value of your commander you own in the battlefield in the command zone. Obviously, if he's in the command zone, you're going to be drawing quite a bit because his mana value goes up. Sudden Spoiling. Blood Tracker. I really like this guy because you can pay a bunch of life and put counters on him. And then when he dies, if you sacrifice him to draw cards, you can draw even more cards. Why not? Peer into the Abyss. One of your win cons, so you can get all your cards in your hand. The Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Blood combos in here. Soul Ring. Black Sun Zenith. Just removal. Mirrored Landscape, I usually put in the monocolored decks or limited colors, especially on a good ramp. It's just a way to get more land out. Shade Form, you're paying life to put 1/1 on something or give it 1/1 for the turn. Removal. Contamination. Sacrifice creature, sacrifice contamination. One land is tapped for mana, produces black 7 normal type in amount. So this is great for your monocolored. And also, it can hurt you, but if you're playing it the right way, you're using it to slow your opponents down if they're playing multicolor and they're not in black. Fancy thing. Crystal Vein for fast mana. Rip of Erebos to give all the rest of your creatures lifelink. I don't really use the bottom. I don't really care for that. Sometimes you do, but most of the time I don't. Thought Seize to protect you. Imps Mischief as a counterspell. Skithiryx to get in there and do infect damage. If you can't get him with Commander any other way. Stitch Together to bring stuff back. Removal. Fauna Agonies is one of the most MVP cards in here because you just put so many counters on it for paying life. It's ridiculous. Good old Sadistic Lee. When you creature put in a graveyard play, put a 1/1 counter on enchanted creature. It's pretty great. Oubliette. Necessary to remove somebody's commander from the game. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, because you're going to have a lot of mono black in here, so your devotion's really high, typically. Removal. Temporal Extortion. Most of the time this is just to make somebody get half life. I don't even care, If I can get an extra turn, fantastic. But most of the time I don't care. Usually do this to hit somebody with high life totals. Blood Funnel, I've been messing with this one just because I think it's neat. You play a non-creature spell, counter that spell unless you sacrifice a creature. I like it so that you can make stuff cheaper. And if you're in a bind, this really can push you through to the end if you need to. March of Wretched Sorrow. I like this one. It's new. You can reveal X number of black cards in your hand, 2 less. So a lot of times whenever you're drawing your entire hand or most of your deck, you'll have stuff you don't need. And so you can use it to finish somebody off. removal, plus you can take the top block card of your library and put it into there. Plus you get rid of planeswalkers. Fast mana. The old Void Walker. You know, why wouldn't you? This is great, so you can just exile stuff, so it's not hitting the graveyard. It helps you out a lot more than you think. Mass removal. You know, Gary, why not? Make your commander unblockable. Or anything, really. Fast mana. Bubbling Monk, more fast mana. So you're really ramping up with this one. So Soul Exchange is neat. Sacrifice a creature removed from the game to open your graveyard. Take a creature from your graveyard and put it directly into play as though it were just summon. And then you put a 2/2 counter on it. So that's just a way to get some big boys like Skithrix back from your graveyard if you need to. Necrologia. You know, do it in your end step. And then you pay amount of life to draw cards. So this is like a really quick Necropotence. The Ad Nauseam to siphon through darkness. So this is pretty much Cryptghast, Dark Ritual. So this is pretty much just a bunch of fast mana and then getting big stuff out there. It's, you know, it's okay. It has a lot of holes in it. It's not as robust as some things that you'll see later on, but it gets the job done. It's more of a shock and all type of deck, you know. Removing things, plus you send it on an adventure. Get it back to the lifelinker. Ulamog, another shock and awe thing on here. Fast mana. A really great card. I love Ransack Lab. I've had this in here since I got it way back when I built this deck. It's helping you figure out what you're going to play next. Glistening Oil, just to get something in effect. That's all you're doing. Infernal Darkness. Oh man, that's another way to make everything just a black producing mana to slow things down. Thawing Glaciers, do that if you need to go look for lands. Most of the time I do that to siphon lands out. I like Baleful Mastery. You can exile a creature planeswalker. Of course, Cabal Coffers. Snuff Out, removal. Bolas Citadel. You know, I was running the Bolas Citadel combo, but I just don't anymore. I don't really care for it. I really need to just put this back in here because I've had this in here since I built the deck originally, so I wanted to get a nice copy of it and put it in here. Cures Ghost Form, protects your commander. Blood Celebrant to pay life and get mana. Necropotence, of course. So, you know, just mono black staples. City Traders, fast mana. Again, you're pretty much paying life to get these 1/1s. So the creatures that are in here, they're going to be big, or you can make them big. So, you know, you get fast mana off of this for mass removal. Again, paying life to make them big. And then a mass removal. So that's just the mono black deck. I've been playing this, and I play this more than any other deck I've had here, except for maybe the next one. You know, it's solid, but you know, again, it's bloated. I powered it down quite a bit. I took some of the fast mana options out of it, and I toned some things down. I think it's a little bit more robust. I used to not run any creatures in it, honestly. I just did spells, and it was interesting. I would do stuff like a lot of mono black control, like Microsynth Lattice and Karn. And I don't know that I run that in any of these anymore. Or if I do, I just haven't played them in a while. I probably shifted it over to something else. So let's pause and go to the next one.